everyone, and welcome to the next in the season of Heads Up. I am so excited, and if you can see on my face, I'm so excited to welcome the infamous, famous Queen of Kosher, Jamie Geller, to our little studio here. And welcome, Jamie, to London. Thank you so much for meeting with us today.
Thank you, Emma. It's such an honor to be here. Thanks for wanting to speak to me for this special program.
Of course. So if anyone doesn't know Jamie, I don't know how it's possible not to know Jamie. Jamie is a cookbook author. She is a TV personality. You've now got your own spice blend. You've got so many things to your name. How did you start with cooking? Where did it all begin?
Basically, my husband said, "What's for dinner?" And I was like, "I don't know. You tell me." Like, I didn't know the difference between a spatula and a saucepan, and I didn't care. I didn't grow up religious. I was a TV producer in New York. I used my oven for storage. My parents are from Transylvania, and they emigrated I always say they went from Transylvania to Pennsylvania in the 1960s. And my mother really wanted the best, for her American-born daughters, doctors, lawyers, be marketing executives, TV producers, whatever it is, but not barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. Like, her dream was never for us to be a balabusta, which is like we say Martha Stewart. I guess it would be Donna Hay, and she's Australian. Right. She's also known in England. I don't know who's the Martha Stewart of England.
I don't know. Well, Mary Berry's our baking queen. We all have
Mary Berry. Fine, correct. So that's like not the dream. That was not the dream for her. And so I was never trained. Didn't ever cook a thing, iron a thing. I didn't know how to sew. Nothing domestic. And so my husband actually taught me how to cook. He had a background in catering. All the men in his family, his mother, his stepmother, were all great cooks, and his father, fantastic cooks. And so we did it together. He taught me how to cook, and I wrote my first book called Quick and Kosher: Recipes from the Bride Who Knew Nothing. And that was my story, literally from nothing. Wow. And from all the embarrassments and all the mistakes. And if I can do it, you can too. Quick and simple recipes, because I always say, I'm the only cookbook author that wants to get you out of the kitchen. So that's how it started.
Oh my gosh. I can't believe it. People actually, I've always seen in movies, people put their pots and pans as the oven is storage for their pots and pans rather than using it. But I didn't realize people.
Or for their sweaters, Emma. It doesn't be pots and pans. Clothing too.
Oh my gosh. So you've had no formal training, so to speak. It's all inside or just inbuilt. You've just been practicing.
I always tell everyone I'm not a chef. I just play one on TV, So now the term celebrity chef has come. So kind of okay with that. But I used to have them remove chef every time, they wanted to introduce me or somebody wanted a bio. So no formal training. I learned on the job. And I always say, they don't, when they teach motherhood, they don't teach motherhood. They should teach you how to juggle, because it's like you need to do everything. So I learned how to be a mom on the job. I learned how to be a cook on the job. Yeah, wow. Just like that.
Amazing. So what was your journey to Judaism to get you to the stage of where you are right now? Because you said you didn't grow up religious, your family from Transylvania. How did that all happen?
Yeah, so my grandparents were survivors of the Holocaust, and definitely just sort of shrugged off their traditional Jewish upbringing post the Holocaust. So definitely, my parents were raised in traditional homes. They're Eastern European, but not religious. And so I grew up also with a sense of tradition, a love for Israel, going to a Jewish day school. I think I've heard people call it, I don't know, but the school I went to, I think, is similar to what they're calling Hasmo. I don't know if that's,
I teach them.
Okay, so let me know if this is right. It's mixed girls and boys. Is that Hasmo mixed?
No, Hasmo's got two sites. It's got two separate.
So Hasmo's already more religious. So I went to a Jewish day school that was mixed, and we did learn half of the day religious studies and half the day secular studies. But we learned the religious studies in theory. It wasn't like anyone at home was a practicing Jew. So no one kept really kosher. No one really was Shomer Shabbos. No one kept Shabbos, but we learned about it. So I know the alphabet. I know how to read it in Hebrew excellent. I knew how to, pray, everything. But I did that in school. That's what you do in school. Right. And so I did have a very traditional upbringing. But once I went to NYU and I became a TV producer. I was at CNN, I was at HBO, I was going to the Academy Awards, the Daytime Emmys, the MTV Music Awards, mingling for the first time out of, even though it wasn't religious, but sort of a traditional Jewish cocoon. I had gone to Jewish day school and Jewish summer camps and Jewish camps. My mother was freaking out. Like, she didn't want me to meet the wrong guy in the wrong place. Like, the most important thing, I don't have to be any at all religious, but I should just marry a nice Jewish boy, you know? So she started sending me to Torah classes, weekly classes on the Parsha, on the weekly Torah portion in New York, in Manhattan. And slowly, as I started to learn more about Jewish wisdom and our timeless Jewish wisdom in the Torah, I became much more interested in leading a more observant life. And slowly but surely that happened.
Wow, that's incredible. How was working in the TV producing world? How was all of that?
I loved it. It was unbelievable. I was doing things. I actually started as an intern at NYU when I just turned 19 after my freshman year. I started interning at CNN in their entertainment news department. And after an amazing summer internship, which I worked full time in the summer, for the next few years, I stacked my classes. So I only had classes Tuesday and Thursday, and I would work for them. I continued my internship through college Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I graduated within 3 years as opposed to 4 years because I was offered a job there. And I got to do the most incredible things. And I always say, you could tell a lot about a society by who it is that they celebrate. So my mother would go to like cocktail parties or be at weddings and catching up with her friends. You know, people are talking and mingling. Oh, what does your daughter do? What does your son do? So, you know, one person's like, her son's a lawyer. The other, you know, one of her daughter's a heart surgeon. People like, oh, that's so nice. And then my mom was like, you know, well, my daughter's a TV producer and she just interviewed Gwyneth Paltrow, Michael Douglas, Beyonce. People are like, oh my gosh, tell me more. You know, like, that was the wow. And it was certainly wow for that age. But slowly but surely it took a few years and I started to see and feel a lot of emptiness inside. Somehow it wasn't enough. It was definitely a fun professional career, but it wasn't feeding my soul or feeding me in the way that I felt I needed or fostering the type of life that I wanted to live.
Wow. So then you switched straight to food. That was the transition.
No. So basically, so my first, when I first decided to become Shomer Shabbos, you know, to keep Shabbat, it was in December when Shabbat starts at sundown, right? So it starts around 4 o'clock in New York. And the show that I worked for at CNN, the live show, was called Entertainment Showbiz Today, which is like the entertainment news show, started at 4:30. So I had to quit my job. And so I quit my job. I went to Israel. I started to go to a seminary to learn more about what it means to, you know, become a religious, you know, Jewish woman. I obviously grew up Jewish, but didn't know any of the traditions, you know, and any of the things I need to do to become observant and to lead a more traditional lifestyle. I'm 3 weeks in a seminary in Israel and I get a call asking if I could be on the set of The Sopranos, you know, the next week. And I said, sure, I could be there because I still love TV and I love producing, but I couldn't work for the live show anymore. But if I felt like if I could work in not in live television, I could have my cake and eat it too. So I came back to New York and I continued, you know, learning all the amazing, wonderful classes that are available for young, single Manhattan professionals in New York. And Aish New York being one of them at the time, Rebbetzin Esther Young Rice, the Jewish Renaissance Enrichment, Jewish Enrichment Center, Rebbetzin Esther, all these different organizations. And so then I work at HBO, then I get set up, I get married, and then my husband said, what's for dinner? And so it took quite a long time. So the first thing that I did is I learned how to cook on the job. And then the next thing I did is once I had my first child, I couldn't leave her. I couldn't continue to go working literally 26 hours a day. That's what it felt like, you know, like nonstop. And so when I was on maternity leave, they offered me everything to come back, you know, a promotion to executive producer, a 4-day work week because of Shabbos. Like, this is HBO offered me a 4-day work week so that I could observe the Sabbath, but I didn't want to leave my daughter. And so once I quit, that sort of second stage of my TV career, that's when I started writing my cookbook, which was an autobiography, which I poured from the soul, what it was like to be someone who's just learning how to keep kosher, someone who's learning how to be a mother, someone who's learning how to be a wife and learning how to cook at the same time. So it was like a little bit of a progression.
Wow. You've come across extremely career-driven, extremely dedicated to what you want to do. It's unbelievable because so most people in that situation, you would relax maternity leave, but you know, straight away switching careers and you're like on another path. It's unbelievable. So you're now in the cooking world. It must have changed tremendously from when you first started to now, because now with Instagram and all these celebrity chefs and everything going on social media, you must have seen a tremendous change from when you first started, because when you first began, none of this existed and you were one of the first people who were putting out books in this kind of way. So how have you seen it develop?
It's unbelievable, the development. Social media has completely changed the landscape of what it means to share your passions and your creativity, whether it's cooking or fashion or your expertise in business coaching, mentoring, life coaching, etc. So, when I first put out the book, like, it was amazing. I would do a tour. I would travel the world speaking to communities, organizations, so that I could like touch and feel and hug the people that were reading my words. But a book, I was able between, kids, able to put out a book like every 2 years, every 3 years, but not on a consistent basis. So then something started called blogging. Okay, you could like put up a blog or put up a website and you could like write something daily, right? Now it's like literally
Every minute.
minute to minute. Minute to minute, you can put up new content, new thoughts, share. It's completely changed the face of the cooking world and our world as we know it. So and it's unbelievable to see that growth. I think my first book came out 13 years ago, so we're talking like over a decade ago, and like information sharing as we know it.
Right, but that must be quite challenging also as somebody trying to provide content and give over information, to constantly have that stress of everyone else is doing things and looking around at what other people are doing and everyone else is providing content. That must be a huge amount of stress for somebody.
You're so intuitive. You're correct. There's so much pressure. There's so much pressure. First and foremost, for those of us that started in traditional media, we're
Right.
used to putting out a certain amount of content that is very thought out, that is very high caliber, that is very high level, that is very curated, and only exactly what we wanted people to see. But the trend really now is just anything and everything. It's quantity over quality. It doesn't matter. People want what they're calling authenticity and real, but it's almost overdone and it's overexposed, and people are overexposing their life. And obviously the more drama and the more angst and the more pain is like the stuff that gets,
more
the more
shares,
views,
more likes.
the more shares. And so it's very challenging, and people feel tremendous pressure. And a lot of the social media stars and the celebrities that we know that are famous influencers, as much as they do look good and do smile for the camera, they're paying a very heavy emotional price for keeping up with this level of production.
So how do we deal with that? Because I mean, there are people watching this, all different ages. There are teenagers. There are and every perspective. We have social media thrust in our faces. How do we deal with the challenge of not just as a business, but just in life, with the pressure of seeing other people and how they're living their lives?
So I don't think it's a new problem, right? Because we've always dealt with the problem of, before social media existed, of comparing ourselves to our neighbors. In America, there's a saying, keeping up with the Joneses.
Right.
I don't know if that's, yeah. So feeling jealousy, look what she has, but I don't have, all these things. So it's now exacerbated. It's on on steroids, if you will, but it's not a new challenge. And so first of all, for social media, I very much believe in moderation. Very much so. I think my grandmother always said this: everything in moderation is okay. I think if someone you're following doesn't bring you joy and doesn't inspire you, but instead instills any kind of angst, pain, jealousy, or makes you feel less than, you need to stop following. You can't keep watching that kind of stuff, what it does to your psyche and how it plays. And for anyone who's a content creator or an influencer is putting out there, everyone has to do what's comfortable for them, and don't just overexpose and overdo because this one's doing it and she's doing it and he's doing it. You need to put boundaries on everything in your life. And this is no different. Those that are consuming social media and those that are putting out social media.
Right. Wow. I mean, this is another whole topic for itself, but we've only got a limited
Totally. We'll come back another day.
another time. So you worked in America for many, many years. You became famous. You were on TV as a chef. Now you're, on the front of the screen, I assume, rather than the back of the cameras. You're presenting food content. And then you decide to make Aliyah. How did that decision come about?
So my husband said on our first date, I'd like to move to Israel. And I said, well, then go find yourself another girl, because I love Israel. I want to support Israel. Maybe one day I'll have a second home in Israel, but I'm not moving to Israel. And there was a lot of things behind that. Obviously, my family was in the States, obviously the culture of America, and also all of the superficial luxuries of America are very comfortable, and Israel
Especially
is a
food,
little bit more simple.
right? Especially food wise, the Israel does not have the luxuries that they have in America in terms of what we can buy.
Everything.
Right.
The selection, the variety, the overabundance, like, Americans, it's just like we do everything over, right? Like we're just big in every single way. Personalities, loud. You go to the supermarkets are huge and they're filled with so much stuff. And you've never seen such a thing. So um, I really had a lot of trouble with it. And anyway, long story short, we did get married. We got engaged after 2 weeks and got married in less
Wow.
than 2 months.
Wow.
And he worked on me like water on a rock. And it took 8 years. And it took a few times. We put the house up for sale. We took it down. We put it back up for sale. We said goodbye to all the teachers in school. At the end of the year, we're going to Israel. Then we came back and like, what are you doing here? At the beginning of the year. But finally, my oldest was 6. And we felt like it's easier to make Aliyah with younger kids. For sure, we know that. Let's give it a shot. So much of my sister-in-laws and brother-in-laws and the kids' first cousins had made their way over here to Israel. And so we felt like we wanted to join them. We were kind of the last of the family to go over, even though I do have one sister in New York. And so we just decided to go for it. But I always say you can take the girl out of TV, but the TV producer, you can't take that out of the girl. And so I decided to make a real-time documentary and a 10-part series.
It was great. I was going to say, I absolutely loved watching it because I think you were so real and so raw with your emotions, and it was unfiltered. It was and for somebody maybe thinking about Aliyah, thinking about this dream of living in Israel, you spoke about the truth of it and about how hard it was and about leaving your family. It was amazing to watch. How was it?
Thank you.
How people watching you with the cameras? It must have been strange being on that side of the camera.
Well, first of all, I do love it very much to be in front of the camera. That was always my goal. And at that time, my kids were also younger, so they didn't really know what was happening. My husband hates the camera, but he did it for me because he wanted Ali out the whole time. So I was like, well, if we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it big, and we're gonna make a little mini documentary. So he did it for me. But people know normally you don't see him on camera. But I very much felt like it was an important story to tell because I so relate to TV, video, digital media. Like when I was going to make Aliyah, I was like, let me read about it, let me watch about it. And I saw that there were many books written about it, but there hadn't been any kind of docuseries or movies or like this. So I felt like I could create something that there was a whole for and share the story. And it's almost like I'm so thankful because I almost have a home video that we go back and watch, and the kids then are able to remember how it happens and what happens and the way that it happens. But now I definitely put the kids on camera way less, and certainly the older girls as they're getting older, less so. But it was a special time, and a special moment. I felt like an important story to tell.
So if anyone hasn't seen it, is there a way they can access it now?
Sure, yeah, it's called Joyabalia, and it's on YouTube. You'll see the 10-part series, and
I
just
really
follow it in
recommend
order, obviously. 1, 2, 3. Don't go to 7 and then back.
I highly, highly recommend it. So now you're in Israel, and you're the same things. You're cooking and you're creating content and your spice blend. Oh, I've just heard the news that you can buy it in London now. You can get it shipped in London. It's very exciting.
Now there's Amazon shipping worldwide.
So how did it come about? How did you go from to create spice blend?
I've always wanted to it's been almost 10 years that I've wanted to do a product line, and I felt like spices was the easiest, quickest way to start because it's how I cook. Like I didn't want people to have to grab or buy 25 spices that you only use a quarter teaspoon here and a quarter to make your own blends. How do you make things quick, easy, simple, fast, few ingredients, few minutes to prep to get it in the oven? I thought spice blends would just enhance and help people's lives, so something I very much wanted to do. And ever since we made Aliyah, like 9 years ago, I wanted very much to take the spices and the flavors and things that I fell in love with here that are from the shuk and grown in the north and grown in the south and bring them to people wherever they are. And I never could have foretold that the skies would be closed for so long and people would not be able to get to Israel. And even though Israeli food is trending and you'll see other companies that have a za'atar spice blend, they're not. This is hyssop. This is the biblical spice and herb. It's indigenous to the land. It's only up north. People like McCormick is making it with oregano and I don't know what else there's, parsley. This is the real deal. So we have things like Hawaii, za'atar, shawarma mix, Jerusalem mixed grill, sumac, baharat, I even did like an ode to my background, a Hungarian rub that's amazing for briskets and roast chicken. So many great things that literally you take the vegetable, you put the spice rub on it, a drizzle of olive oil, done. You take the chicken, you take the brisket, you take the chuck roast, spice rub, a drizzle of olive oil, done. That's the goal here.
I'm so excited to get it. And I know there's something very special and unique about the people that worked behind the scenes and the packing maybe of the
Yes. So if you notice, if you've got a willing, people will order it, and you'll see that the labels are sometimes a little misaligned or may have some air bubbles, but that's because they're applied by hand by people with special needs in the North. And we find it very important to give this segment of the population that often finds it hard to find employment, for them to do so, to be paid, and to find employment and do something that gives them dignity and a sense of purpose. And they apply, like I say, the spices are made in Israel with love. They're packaged in Israel with love by people with special needs, with emotional and developmental disabilities, but that want to contribute and want to feel that they are contributing to society and resourceful and can be employed and gainfully employed. And so it's a very special part of the project for us.
Incredible, really incredible. And as well as all of that stuff, you're also now working for Aish.
Yeah. So it's interesting. We kind of touched on this before. I've been doing this 13 years, like in the food space, 10 plus years online. And Corona did this to a lot of people. I think a lot of people just had like a moment to stop and to think and to see where are their passions, what do they want to do with their lives, where are they contributing, are they happy with where they are? And so I just felt very much like I've done a lot in this space, but wasn't continuing to feel creatively challenged, not loving per se where the industry was going. As I shared before, a little bit in the overexposure on social media. I definitely want to continue to bring people fast and easy recipes, but to do so like on my terms, in the way that when I feel inspired to share those recipes with them and have them come from the heart and soul, and not have that sort of like daily grind of production. And also I felt very much like we hit a lot of milestones. We over 1 billion views of our videos collectively, an audience of 5 million across all the different social platforms, over 10,000 recipes on the site, 7 cookbooks. It's kind of like, what now? What now? Like, what next?
It's absolutely mind-boggling.
I mean, but I thank God, as a team, it's not just me. It's been developed over 13 years. But it's like, what next? And I feel I get a lot of messages from people about how a lot of the things that we're doing inspired them, changed their lives, and whether it's Aliyah, whether it's easy cooking, whether it's when we talk about the holidays, and Judaism and how that affected them. And I felt very limited in helping them to move beyond. Like, I'm so happy that I opened a door, that was an entree, if you will, to Judaism. But then what next? How do I move them along the path? Where are my resources to continue that conversation with them and help them find a love for Judaism the way that I found a love for Judaism later in my life? And so all of that together just felt me like, I know how to leverage digital media. I know how to leverage social media. I want to do more for the Jewish people. I want to find more fulfillment in my life. And I love Aish. And so how do we get together and make a change? And so that's where we are. And we're working on something called Aish Vision 2030, which is our goal to bring 3 million Jews, that would be 20% of the world Jewry, of the Jewish population, bring them into learning Torah and learning about our timeless Jewish wisdom. And that's the goal. And that's how it started for me. When I started just learning the weekly parsha and seeing how it applies to my life, how timeless Jewish wisdom is relevant to my life now as a young Manhattan professional TV producer, I think that would open a lot of doors and bring a lot of sense of peace and security to the people who are living in this crazy time right now and who are apathetic about their Judaism. So that's my new 10-year mission, and then maybe I can retire.
Incredible office view. I mean, your office is like overlook the Kotel.
Oh my gosh!
I love watching your stories. I love watching how you go down to the old city. It's amazing. I feel like you're there.
So the Dan family Aish World Center is literally one Western Wall Plaza. Period. Like, we're working opposite the Kotel. I never dreamed in my life. I worked in Manhattan, Times Square, Columbus Circle. Like this to me is like the dream of all dreams, and to do it from the heart of the Jewish world, from the heart of what I think is the world's holiest place in the world, and to be like sort of emanating from here, broadcasting, podcasting, creating content is I feel like it's a combination of everything, like all that TV producer stuff, all that sort of marketing,
It's like
executive.
full
Here we
circle.
are.
All comes
Yes.
full circle. Wow.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I feel like I could talk to you all day, but I am conscious of the time. And I always end off all the interviews by asking the same question, which is, this program is called Heads Up, to keep our heads up and keep our spirits up for the month ahead. So what words of wisdom, what pearls of inspiration can you impart to our viewers to keep their spirits up for the month ahead?
Wow. Okay. So something I spoke about yesterday, I have a weekly show on Aish called Feed Your Soul, where we do cooking and then talking about matters how food feeds the soul and then nourishes in matters of spirituality. And so one thing that came up yesterday, so it's just top of mind, and that's why I'm sharing it. There's this concept that I learned, Avinu Shebashamayim, God is our Father in heaven. And it's very hard to, when things are challenging, when a particular door closes, an opportunity is lost, personally, professionally, you're having a challenge. It's very hard to sit in that space. And I remember someone explaining, like, God, we pray to God, turn to God, you should have faith, etc. But God is like, the concept is so hard to grasp. When it was explained to me that God is like our Father in heaven, I think about my father, my parents, how much they love me. There's no one else that is like advocating and wants success more for me, my parents, and thank God, now my husband. And so when we put literally that image onto God and think about it, he's our Father who has all the limited resources in the world. And I literally almost think of my father, like, if he could give me anything, he would do and open any door. If a door is closing, it's because he's just redirecting me to another opportunity. Sometimes it takes time, but when you know that it's with that love that the challenges are happening, then I think it helps us keep our head up and holds us through to when the next opportunity comes.
Wow. I'm totally inspired. And I think also from your life story, when you stopped working for the TV production company, who knew where your life was going to be and how successful you would have ended up being? And you really are a true inspiration to all of us watching. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us and sharing your wisdom. And I really, if anyone doesn't follow Jamie on social media, follow her now and watch all her videos, and her Aish stuff. It's all really incredible and really, really inspiring. We're talking about following people on social media who inspire you and keep you uplifted. Jamie is definitely one of those accounts to follow. So really thank you so much. And buy her spice blend that we can now get in London. And for everyone else, looking forward to seeing you next month in the next edition of Heads Up. Have a wonderful month.